This is the Extra Mile.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Extra Mile. I'm Justin, that's G5, and this is Caleb. Hi, everybody. How are y'all?
I'm pretty good.
I'm good.
I know I changed it up.
Give me the coffee.
I need the coffee too.
George, how have you been, man?
Been good.
As soon as we record, the air conditioner comes on.
Oh, yeah, of course. Sorry, we need to fix that.
Let's talk about things that I'm thankful for.
Oh, go ahead. What are you thankful for?
Air conditioning. Thank you. Thank you, whoever invented refrigeration.
I think it's easy to hate stuff, but then really tiring to just keep hating things. So finding things to be thankful for is pretty cool.
We could start the podcast moving forward with that thing that Jimmy Fallon used to do. I don't even know if he still does it or not, where he plays a little piano piece and he's like, thank you cards.
Oh, yes.
Have you ever seen
yes,
that?
I like those.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
I've never been able to get a bit out of him because he's just laughing constantly.
I don't know why you hate Jimmy Fallon.
I really don't care for him. I didn't like him when he was on Saturday Night Live. I didn't like him when he took over the Tonight Show. I wanted Conan to take over the Tonight Show.
We were talking about things that we're thankful for, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That
kidding,
turned quickly
Justin.
to things we were hating, thankful for to
Sorry.
hating again.
Sorry about that. I just took everybody down. I'm sorry. Thankful. What are we thankful for? I'm thankful for you guys.
Yeah, same. So I'm very thankful.
Coffee.
I'm thankful for the coffee.
I know we're caffeinated.
Yeah.
If you're listening to the podcast for the first time, we welcome you to the Extra Mile. We typically talk about the Bible and our passion for God and a passion for life. And
Just try to mix the two.
hit the like, the comment, and subscribe, and tell your friends.
That's right.
And if you're not listening, start listening.
So what's been going on, Justin?
Oh, I've been preparing for my another licensing exam, my master's license with Texas. So I've just nosing the book. That's what
Okay.
I've been doing, learning about electricity. I take that on Saturday morning.
Do you like studying?
It's yes, I like learning. I like learning about things that, especially when it's the kind of studying where you turn the page, you read the thing, you do the math, and you go, I understand that. Okay, go to the next thing, and then you do the math and you understand it, and you just continue to understand. That's the best kind of learning. Whereas if you hit a kind of a wall and you say, I don't know what this is talking about, then that can be frustrating and discouraging.
Yeah, I was listening to someone who said the other day that, things come easy once you understand them. Like once there's an understanding. A
Mhm.
video game is super easy once you understand at least the rules of the game and then understand the technique. And then, of course, I'm sure there's layers to that. So certain layers of understanding helps then make that either easier or harder or challenging.
Makes sense.
Find that true?
Yeah, and you could even say that with, I've found that with electrical things, with math, where I remember calculus was really hard for me. And we were actually talking about this before we started recording, Caleb and I, where calculus was hard in school, and I think I got like a B- in class. One of my classes that I didn't do as well, and took the AP calculus test in high school and did not score high at all. I think I got one of the lowest scores. And then I took it again in college, and this is what we were talking about. When you have a teacher who really understands the material and really understands how to teach it, how to part it down and be able to have easily digestible sections, that's when a subject that would be new to you really comes to life. And so I'm not necessarily proud to say, but because of the understanding like you were talking about, I went and had a couple of one-on-one meetings with this professor. I had very visceral memory of this. But I don't remember his name, sadly. I have to go look at my transcript. But I went back to his office hours, and I said, I'm not getting the calculus. I'm just not getting it. And he's let me show your work. Again, he was looking at my work, and he says, you're not doing all of the steps. You need to do all of the steps. Write it down. And I said, well, that's boring. I don't want to sit there and write all day. He goes, well, you're not getting the problems right, so maybe you should do the work. And so, fine. I respond well to that, And so, fine. And I wrote down. And then finally, he says, well, what's your logic here? What are you trying to do? I said, well, I'm trying to replace this number for A. And he goes, so write that down. What, the sentence? Yeah. Wait, math can have words in it? What are you talking about?
Wow,
and it was just a light bulb moment. And he says, yeah, write that down. Okay, now we're going to replace A for this number. And then you write the equation. And so and then once I did the legwork, it opened up that door of understanding, like you were talking about, where from that moment forward, I was just doing math wrong, essentially. And so once I learned that math was actually logic in number form, math became easy. And so I actually broke the curve for that class, because everybody was making like C's and B's in the class, and I was acing the tests. So it's sort of sorry all of my colleagues that I broke the.
Yeah,
you were that person.
Yeah.
Rub it in.
Sorry, everybody.
Hey, it pays to go to the teacher, right?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, that's the game, right? What you were saying is once you understand college, that's it. The reason why professors have office hours is to have that one-on-one instruction. Some of the depending on whether they actually keep them or you actually go. But some of the best talks I ever had with my professors in school were going to their office hours, bringing them a cup of coffee, and just picking their brain one-on-one. That's when the real understanding and the learning came.
Really?
And so it's very similar to what we're doing here, where you and I are having a conversation, and now Caleb has joined us. And so the three of us are having a conversation, and we're talking about the Bible, and you're actually able to really get down into the weeds of, I think I understand this now, or I've never considered that as a concept. And so you are able to then zoom out and look at life with that understanding, and life starts making sense. The world starts making more sense. I mean, if you can judge it to chaos and all of that, but that's how I look at learning, is you have to break it down into pieces that's digestible, and then from there you can start doing more advanced concepts based on those things that you've learned.
Wow.
I don't know why I have this exegesis on learning,
that's
but
pretty great.
I mean, but the parallel is obviously the same with the Bible. So,
And what's that?
well, so it's easy to open up the scriptures and just sort of read anything.
Right.
I mean, and there's actually an account in Acts 7. Is it Acts 7?
Let's look.
Where Philip was called. No, that's Stephen's defense. Apologies.
You talking about Acts 17?
Yes, 17.
Or wait, you talking about Stephen?
No. When
The
Philip
Bereans?
Philip was told to go to the eunuch, that might be Acts 5.
Oh, that's 8.
Okay, thank you. See, I had all that memorized once. So we're talking about Acts chapter 8.
Philip, right?
Yeah, when he has to go talk to the eunuch.
Yeah, verse 26.
There you go. So this is Acts chapter 8, verse 26. This is an illustration. We're just coming up with this off the cuff, right? So Acts 8:26.
Don't tell them that.
Well, sorry, a little bit too much
Plan
of a
this
peek
days
behind
in
the curtain.
advance.
But an angel of the Lord, this is 26, spoke to Philip. That's cool, right? I wish an angel would speak to me. Get up and go south to the road that descends from Jerusalem to Gaza. This is a desert road. So he went up and went. So he got up and went. And there was an Ethiopian eunuch, a court official of Candace, queen of the Ethiopians, who was in charge of all her treasure. Uh-oh. So this guy who was in charge of this queen's treasure, you can tell he was
It's not
probably
important at all.
high up there. He was kind of an important dude. And he had come to Jerusalem to worship. Okay, so he was practicing. He was doing what the old law told him to do. And he was returning and sitting in his chariot and was reading the prophet Isaiah.
Mm-hmm.
So he was wealthy enough, obviously, to have a scroll of the Old Testament, books, the scriptures. Then the Spirit said to Philip, "Go up and join this chariot." Philip ran up and heard him reading Isaiah the prophet. So he was reading aloud. He was probably reading aloud to the company that was around him.
Interesting. Okay.
And said, "Do you understand what you are reading?" He said, "Well, how could I unless someone guides me?" And that's it in the nutshell. That's learning, where you have this
Good
information,
illustration.
and I'm saying, well, I'm trying to read it. My heart's in the right place. I really want to know, and I want to understand. How can I know unless someone guides me? And he invited Philip to come up and sit with him in the chariot. Now, The passage of Scripture which he was reading was this: He was led as a sheep to slaughter, and as a lamb before its shearer is silent, so he does not open his mouth. In humiliation his judgment was taken away. Who will relate his generation? Who will relate his generation? I should have read. For his life is removed from the earth. The eunuch answered Philip and said, Please tell me, of whom does the prophet say this? Of himself or of someone else? So he had the right intent, but he didn't get it.
He's true. He's asking questions too.
Absolutely. He's inquisitive.
Yes.
Then Philip opened his mouth, which is necessary in the teaching. And beginning from this scripture, he preached Jesus to him. As they went along the road, they came to some water, and the eunuch said, Look, water, what prevents me from being baptized? So the implication is that when he preached Jesus to him from Isaiah, that there was an understanding that water baptism was necessary.
Sure.
So much so that they even stopped their travels in the desert road.
So a lot has happened between verse 35 and verse 36.
Yeah. And Philip said, If you believe with all your heart, you may. And he answered and said, I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. And he ordered the chariot to stop, and they both went down into the water, Philip as well as the eunuch, and he baptized him. When they came up out of the water, the Spirit of the Lord snatched Philip away, which I think is awesome, teleportation. And the eunuch no longer saw him, woo, but went on his way rejoicing. But Philip found himself in Azotus, etc. So I love that story because it really is essential to A, learning, but then B, what we're all called to do as people on this planet. When we come to Christ, we have to be inquisitive, and Christ tells us on the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5, if we knock, it will be open to us. If we seek it, we'll find it. And so we have to seek Jesus, and he'll be there waiting for us.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I just think of all the times, too, where he taught with authority. I think sometimes we think that's like, I mean, obviously he had the authority, of God and things like that, but, he taught in a way that for those that were really listening, and I'm sure like Philip, like this eunuch here, and in Philip's situation, person who asked questions, I mean, oftentimes the disciples would be like, what do you mean by this parable? And he's like, oh, let me just break it down for you. And he breaks it down.
He oftentimes chastises them as well.
He's
like,
a little
oh,
annoyed.
you of little faith.
It's like,
oh, you have little understanding.
if you have a lemonade stand, and
Well, I have a question for y'all. What makes a great? Because I mean, for the most part, I kind of gave up TV, and so I don't really keep up with a bunch of the newer shows that are constantly watching. But you guys say that that's one of your hobbies. What makes a great TV show? I mean, I play video games. I don't watch TV. I mean, that's what I do. Right.
What makes a good TV show?
Yeah.
A good TV show is, for me, is one that's going to make me think. That's what I look for, especially in a movie these days. I feel like a lot of movies, and you can give your piece here in a second because you might disagree with me.
Ugh, Marvel movies.
I feel
now.
like, yes, a lot of those
I can't stand them.
are just cookie cutter movies, man.
I'm looking at you, Caleb.
I know.
I can't stand Marvel movies.
Did you finish?
I was going to say, they don't make me think. They're just the same thing. I've seen all the action. I've seen all the flips. I've seen all the shooting. I've seen everything.
All the CGI.
I want to be...
all the Transformers.
Yeah. I want to have
Shia LaBeouf is not a hero.
a really good story.
Those movies are just trash, so that's okay.
Yeah.
How
yeah,
can you
I do that.
differentiate garbage from garbage? This garbage is better than this garbage.
So for me, like, man, you're going to get me on a tangent here, and this has nothing to do with the Bible, but
Watch me.
yeah, George is like, bring it
challenge
on.
accepted.
He goes into the Matrix on his computer to find the Bible verse. But like, you started with talking about TV shows, then you brought up movies. To me, those are two completely separate things. TV shows, like, I purely just watch them for straight up enjoyment, and I don't care how dumb they are. Like, they can be I told y'all this morning I was watching The Rookie, which is a very clean show. That, to me, that's one of the most important things right now, because it's just so pervasive. In any new TV show, there's language all over it, or other things that I don't particularly want to watch. But that being said, movies, I watch them for enjoyment, but I also way hardcore judge every single one of them for their cinematography,
As art.
the plot, the art behind the movie. So that's kind of what classifies if it's good or not good for me, for movies and TV shows.
So it has nothing to do with the narrative. It's all about the medium.
Kind of. I mean, there's a piece of the narrative that I still appreciate, but it's not as important to me.
Because you're a writer. Do you feel the same way?
I've published nothing. I write for a
That's
hobby.
not true. I think your opus is standing the test of time as you're shepherding a flock.
Yeah, I like to write. What was your question?
Let me go again, I suppose. I don't know, let me rephrase. So you're a writer, does story in movies or television, because he's saying that art, the medium, cinematography, the lighting, the angle, the aperture.
The writing for me is super important. If I can guess the next line or even the next scene, which oftentimes in movies and TV shows I can, then I'm kind of annoyed.
I agree with that too.
I've done that a couple times, and Rose was like, "How did you do that?" And I said, "It's just bad writing."
It's just bad writing. I've seen it so much, I know it's coming.
Right.
And
Trope.
and your foreshadowing has to be really subtle. I don't know. It can't just be.
You don't like the Chekhovian gun?
There's times for it, but
Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
So there was a playwright in 1800s, early 1900s, Anton Chekhov, Russian, and he wrote a bunch of these comedies. But I did one in college. We did The Three Sisters in college. It's not. I mean, it's funny, but it's not a ha-ha comedy. It's more of an ironic Russian imperialist comedy, if that makes sense. So it's not like ha-ha, but it's very accentuated tropes of people that are meant to lampoon. But in serious situations, so it's like they're fraught with peril, and there's an execution, and there's a duel in the play. Anyway, and so he wrote one of his tropes into his plays whenever he was doing playwriting, where he says in the first act, if you're in the salon of a house, and over the mantle there's a rifle hanging over the mantle, and they walk over to the mantle, gazing the fire, and then he places the hand on the gun, or he mentions hunting or something. So if you allude to this weapon in the first act, in the third act it better go off. So that's called the Chekhovian gun, right? And so you set up dominoes in the first and second act that you then topple in the third act. And so you'll see, now that I've said that, next time you see a movie where sometimes they won't deal with the Chekhovian gun. They won't allude to the knife that she, let's say somebody's trying to strangle her or something, and she takes a knife out and stabs him, and that's how she gets away. Mm-hmm. But if the cinematography never alludes to, oh, there's the knife, and she reaches and grabs the knife, if it never sets up the shot, you're like, where'd the knife come from? What? Yeah. So it just sort of breaks the visual narrative. Anyway, that's a Chekhovian gun.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to go on a huge side tangent, but
no,
our listeners might not know that.
I think you're right. Look,
I'm just super nervous.
We're all just trying to seek good cinema, and it's very hard to do these days.
Well, I think my point about the questioning about the narrative, you don't care about the story at all?
No, I do.
Do you like art movies? Like the ones that have no narrative and it's just all visual? You ever gone to galleries and stuff?
No.
So the story means something to you.
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
Have you just watched a silent film?
Oh.
Sometimes. Have y'all?
Don't even get me started.
Have y'all never gone to an art gallery and watched art movies and stuff?
Well, I want to get him started on silent films.
I don't know what
Go to YouTube.
Movie is. I really wish I could remember the name, but there was
a
time.
Have a guy with a mustache looks like this?
No. No.
Usually all of them do.
No, it's not like an old, black and white movie, but someone produced a movie, and man, I'm going to have to look it up and see if I can find it here in a second, but it was back in the day when Netflix you would order the DVDs.
Oh yeah, classic.
And they would deliver to your doorstep, and you'd only get 2 a month. And there's so many stories I could tell you all about that. But
we paid so much money for that too.
But Dad would always, if he's listening to this, he's going to text me after this and be like, can't believe you brought that up. But he would rent the most obscure movies in the whole world and be like, y'all, guess what? I rented a movie this time. We'd be like, okay. And then he's like, it's about this and this. And, they do these things and they're like, okay. And then we watch the movie and be like, Dad, you're never renting another movie again. But the
good taste.
The one where we changed the Netflix password was when he rented The Boy in the Striped Pajamas.
Oh, yeah.
Rough.
Yeah.
For men's movie night when the girls were out on a date night.
For men's movie.
Yeah, let's just watch a big
and when
Holocaust movie.
when I'm weeping at the end of the movie, I looked at him and I was like, never again. But anyway, wow.
It's a rite of passage. You have to watch Schindler's List. You have to watch these things.
But I had to give that background for this one movie he rented where the entire movie, it's not Castaway. It's this guy stuck on a boat by himself, not a word through the entire movie. And it's kind of interesting. You're like, he's trying to figure out, how he's going to get rescued or something. At the end of the movie, this is going to ruin it. So spoiler alert if you want to watch this movie. But at the end of the movie, the boat goes down. He goes in the water and he's slowly like drifting down into the water. And he reaches his hand up and you see a hand and then it goes black.
Nice.
No.
That's nice.
No, it was...
He was saved.
The whole movie was silent. It was so boring.
Oh, no.
But by that, no, you don't know. That's the thing. You don't know if he was saved or not. Like, you see a hand reaching up and there's a hand reaching down, but you don't know if they actually got to him in time or not. So there's this huge cliffhanger where the whole movie was a cliffhanger of, like, is he going to talk? And he never does because we didn't know that he didn't talk through the whole movie. So
do you not like those movies where they kind of end on
it depends.
a
That
dot?
That one I hated.
Do you
just
like
because
Marvel movies?
I like...
Do you answer the question?
Oh, yeah, he does.
Yes.
Okay,
but
then obviously you do like cliffhangers because
Yes.
that's all Marvel movies are.
Yes.
It's
but
like, we've saved the world, and then like, here comes this new villain credits. What?
I love that so
We have
much.
to set up the sequel?
Yeah, but the newest Marvel movies have not been super great.
You mean since the original X-Men, they've been horrible, all of them.
Go home, Josh.
Since the original X-Men movie that
that's
came
a little
out.
too much. That's a little too much.
That was horrible. Horrible.
That's a little too much.
I am
don't agree
opinionated,
with
and
that.
I'll die on this hill.
Oh,
Not
man.
really, but theoretically. The point of me bringing this up, I know we need to bring this back, but like obviously Jesus was the master teacher, as George has alluded to early on. Jesus is the master teacher, and he taught in parables. I don't know why I'm talking to you. I'm talking to my friend now. I'm shunning you.
Okay.
Shun.
See if I bring the cameras to the next podcast.
We just need to bring. You need to be in shot because,
sabotage.
like, I just realized what the visual of this is going to look like is me not looking at George. Anyway, so Jesus, master teacher, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, and so what's the primary thing that Jesus did when he taught? Oh, preacher man.
What's the primary thing?
Well, he taught in. I'll give you the answer.
He taught in parables?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay.
See, that's a weird question. That's me being a bad teacher. But yeah, Christ
No,
teaching in
great
parables. So he taught with story form.
Yeah,
And
he did.
I mean, but he also had direct commands and direct lessons like do this, do this, do this, do this. But then when he would tell a story, these stories have multiple layers. The importance of that is when you look at this story for the first time, it's like your first watching of The Lord of the Rings. You drink in a lot of it, and it's a great story, and you get the point. But then I've never really gone back to a story that Jesus said in parable form and didn't get something new out of it. And I think that has to do with my own age. So if you zoom out and you think about your life, as you get older and you go back to the stories of Christ, the parables, you have new life experiences that you're bringing to the table. It's like if you were to go back now into 5th grade and take 5th grade math again at your current age,
Yeah.
you would destroy 5th grade math. You would ace the mess out of that, right? You would get it.
Hopefully.
I don't know.
If you had a decent teacher, I challenge you to do that, especially now with YouTube. Are you kidding? Cheat codes are enabled in school because you have the internet. And so the idea with Christ's parables is that every time you open up the Gospels and you are looking at his stories, you're able to deem something new from them. It's the master teacher. I mean, it's literally the lessons that keep on giving.
He literally said about his own parables in Matthew 13, I will open my mouth in parables and I will announce what has been hidden from the foundation of the world. So there's wisdom, hidden wisdom within all these parables that I think when he gives them, they're remarkable. We can always pull something deeper and deeper and deeper out. I mean, the parable of the prodigal son is my favorite thing, and it's just always something flying at you. And yet, the storyline of the prodigal son is the same storyline we see in almost every single movie. It's like it really is.
It's like the Spider-Man movies. How many times can you remake that origin story? Apparently 6 times.
I do agree with that one.
But the concept is that you can almost retell that story from different angles and get something new out of it.
Yeah.
And that's what's so magical about it. That's really well said, what your quote from Matthew is. And so that's the master teacher, right? And I think that's why we devote ourselves to these teachings, because anything that man has come up with is slack in comparison.
Right. And not only did he teach in parables, but he also did questions too, which goes back to your point originally.
Have to be inquisitive.
Stories and questions. He wants to get you to think. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes when we hear, those with ears, listen. I mean, they're actively listening. They're not just listening to sound. Like when your kids listen to their parents, it's just kind of wah 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 wah. Mm-hmm. But now when Jesus is talking, and you're listening and you're actively listening, man, that wisdom that you see there in the foundations of the world that Jesus is talking about is open to you to understand. And he brings it to you in story form, so now it's something you can relate to. He gives you questions, so now you can kind of think about something and go off and do your own thing and be thinking about this and have a story to apply to that. It's really, really remarkable.
It truly is. I like how you brought up the Peanuts reference, the wah, 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 wah. That it takes active listening. That point being that we need to want it. And the Matthew 5 illustration, if you seek it, you'll find it. And
here, I was just at that verse, and I'll go there.
And
it's
so
in Matthew 7.
It's Matthew 7. 5 through 7 is the Sermon on the Mount. And so with that concept, you have to want to learn. And so it takes that active engagement. You can't. It's like when you're dragged to a worship service twice a year. You can't necessarily be inspired to follow Christ if you're not willing to do the work yourself.
So Matthew 7:7, I think you're right. You got to put in the work, and God says that here. Jesus says that. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find it. Knock, and the door will be open to you. So I think, stop right there for a second. I think sometimes we think, I just got to ask and it'll be given to me. Well, seeking and knocking also take a lot of action as mm-hmm. well. Seeking the mind, seeking to try to understand, knocking, that's doing. These things all encompass life, right? And then it will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks, the door will be opened. I mean, he doesn't just say ask, and then you do nothing. You sit and just
give it to
wait
me.
for things to happen. Yeah, you're not that entitled. Is there anyone among you, if his son asks for a bread, will give him a stone? So he gives that.
Here's a rock.
There's a story.
Enjoy your rock.
There's an analogy for you, plus with a question. Jesus is so good. Or if he asks for a fish, he'll give him a snake. Right? So God doesn't want to harm his people. He doesn't want to give them the opposite of what they are seeking and asking, but he wants them to understand what is truth. And if you then, although you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? And everything, treat others as you would want them to treat you. For this fulfills the law of the prophets. Yeah, always got to slip that in. But if we are, we've sinned, and yet we naturally search for what is good and long for what is good, and we ask for what is good, and we seek for what is good, we also have to be willing to try to do what is good as well. And asking, seeking, knocking all encompasses our own life.
We peel all that back, and it's a new layer of if you're not doing that, then a change is needed. You need to change. You need to make a choice that you're not going to behave the way that you have been, and you're going to behave anew. You're going to seek the better things, and you're going to look to God. And that's the implication is you're going to start knocking at the door.
Yeah.
If you haven't been knocking, you need to start knocking, and then that's a change you need to seek.
What I preached last time when I talked about, I'll wrap it up here in a second, doing justice, that just really stood out to me, because just acting justly isn't something that I think about in just the average Joe's life. But if I had to put that into one sentence, what is it to act justly or to do justice? And it's basically to take action in order to restore your life or someone else's life in small action and in small steps. And I don't know if that's the best definition, but this idea of I'm going to restore my own life, I'm going to help restore your life, those things, that's an idea of acting justly, bringing what is wrong right. And if God is all good, I mean, he does that for us. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, be inspired to change. If you've done wrong, don't do it anymore. That's called repentance. And seek the forgiveness of God and come to Christ if you're inspired to do so. We hope that you will.
Go tell stories. Go so. If you want to know more about the Bible or you have any questions, our email is in the description below. You can DM us. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're looking for a church family or you're in the Lubbock area, we invite you to come visit and hang out with us in Milwaukee. We love for you to find a church who practices the love of Christ.